coordinator. And really quick here, this session is going to be recorded. So if you are not comfortable with being in this recorded meeting, please feel free to leave. But just as a reminder to everybody, just to know that this session will be recorded. First off, let's just go over a few housekeeping items here. As I mentioned earlier, there is simultaneous Spanish interpretation in this meeting. So if you are only hearing me speak English, please look at the bottom of your screen where you'll see an interpretation icon. It looks like a little globe. You'll press that, and then you'll be able to select English or Spanish. So please pick one of those options so that you'll be able to hear just one language, because otherwise you're gonna hear both languages at the same time. Also, if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please indicate this in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat so that we can take anybody's questions or comments there. We'll also monitor the chat and pass the virtual floor to those who wish to speak at the appropriate time, which will be a little bit later here in this session. And if you are going to speak, please turn on your camera if your internet connection is stable, so that we'll be able to see you and hear your question and see your face. So please turn on your camera. Also, please stay on mute when you're not speaking, so we're not hearing any feedback from anybody else when somebody is speaking, so that we can have a nice, smooth session here. So please remember to mute your mic when you're not speaking. And as I also already mentioned, this session is going to be recorded and uploaded in the LCIPP web portal, which is going to be on the event page there. And then one other housekeeping item that wasn't listed there that I usually like to bring up as well is that if you're going to be speaking, and since we have interpretation, please speak at a nice, calm pace so that our interpreter will be able to pick up everything that you say. So also remember to keep that in mind as well. So in this informal youth consultation here, we have a few agenda items. First off, we're going to start off with the overview of the Local Community Indigenous Peoples Platform, or LCIPP, followed by the LCIPP second 3-year work plan and activity 8 of the work plan, which is the youth roundtable that is going to be held at COP27. And we'll follow that up with the open discussion. So we're going to take everybody's comments and suggestions and inputs at that time, and we'll have an open discussion, and we'll all be able to have time to speak on what we feel should be included in activity 8. And then we'll finish out by going over the next steps and also a closing. So that's going to be our agenda for today. This should only take about, starting from now, about a little less than an hour and a half. So we'll have a good amount of time here to get some good ideas from everybody here in today's meeting. So thank you. So starting off here, talking about the Local Communities and Indigenous Peoples Platform. It's a body that facilitates the exchange of experiences and good practices towards building a climate resilient world for all. I have been involved with the LCIPP since last year. I actually was able to attend the first youth roundtable activity at COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland. So I have some experience in participating in this activity. And so I thought it would be good for me to be able to kind of share that a little bit, and also to be able to help guide anybody who might want to be a part of this activity as well. So the LCIPP, Local Communities Indigenous Peoples Platform, has made a lot of progress since the Paris um, uh, uh, conference in 2015. At COP21, which is in Paris, the LCIPP was established. This body was created there, and so that was a really important event at that time. Also, moving forward to COP24, the facilitated working group was established. That was also another momentous event at the time. And then follow that up to COP26, which was last year. Um, the continue We were able to continue the mandate of the FWG, the facilitative working group, and welcome the second 3-year work plan of the LCIPP. So really, when we're looking at the broad view of the LCIPP, it's still pretty early in age, I guess you can say. A lot of things have been started and created, and now we're in the phase where we're starting to carry out these activities, and we're making progress year after year after year. And so this year's activity, we're hoping to make even more progress and take bigger steps into including more youth and in the talks of climate change, and talking about how youth can play a role in helping to adapt to climate change, and also to help find solutions to create better lives for all of us in the world. So we can move on. Next slide. So the functions of the LCIPP really are to promote the exchange of experience and best practices with the view to apply, strengthen, and protect and preserving traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local knowledge systems, as well as technologies, practices, and efforts of local communities and indigenous peoples related to addressing and responding to climate change, taking into account the free, prior, informed consent of the holders of such knowledge, innovations, and practices. So really what that's saying is we really want to be able to have everybody in the room together, exchanging experiences, exchanging knowledges, collaborating with each other, and being able to connect to each other, to be able to create a common ground with each other, so that we're able to progress our efforts in helping to adapt and combat climate change. Also, another activity or function of the LCIPP is to build the capacity of indigenous peoples and local communities to be able to be a part of the UN FCCC process, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and also the capacity of parties and other relevant stakeholders to engage with the platform and with local communities, indigenous peoples. So really, this is a platform for us as indigenous peoples, local communities, to be able to engage with everybody else, so that we have a seat at the table. That's kind of one of the best ways, I guess, I can to summarize that function. And then the next function here is the integration of diverse knowledge systems, practices, and innovations, designing and implementing international and national actions, programs, and policies. So this is a really important function of the LCIPP. All of these functions are important, but this one really says that what we say is actually going to be implemented in systems, in practices, in technologies, in policies on the local, national, international levels. So that's what that function really is talking about. There is that what we say as a group here is going to be implemented. That's a really important function. Next slide. So the second 3-year work plan here of the LCIPP was just established, or just started this year. And I was just selected as the alternate to the North American representative this year. And so the second 3-year work plan of the LCIPP, we want to be able to continue organizing annual youth roundtable activity, which we're all here to talk about today. So like I said, this year was the first year of that 3-year work plan. Um, so there's a number of activities here that are going to be carried out over this 3-year work plan here. But the main activity that we want to be able to all talk about today is the annual youth roundtable, which will be hosted at COP27. And Supriya just posted a link in the chat here that will give you more detail about the second 3-year work plan if you're more interested in learning about all the other activities. So please click on that link and you'll be able to learn more about all the other activities here. So the annual youth roundtable here, what we're all here for today and talking about and getting ready for is a collaboration with Indigenous youth and youths from local communities. As I said, I was a part of this very same activity last year, and it was a really powerful activity, a really powerful event at the time. Um, I was invited as a representative from the North American region. So there's representatives from each of the United Nations indigenous socio-cultural regions. And we're all there to talk about the experiences as youth of what our communities are going through these days in relation to climate change. What's going on? What are the problems? What are the challenges? And what are the solutions? How are we as Indigenous peoples and local communities, and especially as youth in these communities, how are we able to lend a hand in helping our communities get through these challenges? And how are we able to prepare for the future where we know climate change is an ongoing process that may or may not ever go away. So it's something that we're always going to have to talk about, and it's something that we're all going to have to collaborate with each other, so that we're able to share knowledge with each other. We're able to share practices, and then we're also able to share ideas on how we're able to influence policies on the local, national, international levels, so that we're able to make change in a meaningful way. So so really the formal objectives of the annual youth roundtable, number one, is to enhance the understanding of the substance and procedures of the UNFCCC, both within and outside the convention, and the important linkages between the international human rights standards of Indigenous peoples and the UNFCCC and other climate-related intergovernmental initiatives, including the IPCC. Before I move forward here, if you are new, if you are just joining us, and if you have noticed that your name in the Zoom is Haisu, please rename yourself to the correct name, so that um, we're able to have everybody's names in the room correct here. So please rename yourself as well. Okay, so moving forward here, the second objective of activity 8 is to enhance the engagement of Indigenous youth and youth from local communities and climate policy development and implementation at all levels. And then the third objective is to facilitate the participation of Indigenous youth and youth from local communities in intergenerational knowledge sharing, strengthening practices on the ground, and promoting intergenerational equity. So that's really important. That's a really important objective there. So last year we had a youth roundtable, but we also had elders there as well. We had our Indigenous elders there to be able to communicate with them and also ask them questions. And they also asked us questions as youth. So that's very important that we're able to connect with the different generations, so that we're able to learn about things that we may have never had the opportunity to learn about. So that's a really important objective there as well. Next slide. So so with all of this talk about what this activity is all about, what's going to come out of it? What is going to be the deliverables from this activity? So the one of the main ones here is knowledge gathering. um like I said, is we need to be able to share what knowledge we have with each other. Although we can do that through social media and the internet and through other means, but actually being in the same room with somebody else and talking to them face to face and sharing knowledge, that really creates a special connection between us as Indigenous peoples and local communities and as youth. It's really important that we're able to do that in person, because then you really get the sense of what this person is trying to tell you. You can only get so much through social media, through other means of communication, but being there in person and face to face and gathering knowledge from them in person is very, very important. And then also the next one is recommendations from Indigenous youth participants. So we want to be able to have this activity where whatever comes out from it is actually those deliverables or those outcomes are going to be implemented. They're going to be used. It's not just a open mic where everybody can say what they say and nothing's going to happen after that. No, this is an activity where we need to gather this information. We need to hear from Indigenous youth and from other youth from local communities so that we can ensure gender and social cultural balance on the promotion of the participation activities of the FWG, as well as opportunities to enhance knowledge sharing, capacity building, and policy for integration under the UN FCCC process. So next slide. Okay, so now we're at the point here. We're going to transition into a different part here, but before that, if you are new, if you are just joining us, and you have noticed that your name is Haisu, please rename yourself to your correct name. So please look at your Zoom name and rename yourself to the correct name there. So in this part here, we are going to start with a mentee poll. So if you all look in the chat, you'll see a link to the poll, and you'll be able to enter in a code. And the code is listed there, 76389728. That is the code to the mentee poll. So please click on that link and follow the instructions. And there's also a QR code here on the screen, so you can use your phone to scan the QR code there, and you will be taken to the page. So the first question, I believe, in this mentee poll is to please input which social cultural region do you associate with. That will be the first question there. Looks like we're getting some answers coming in here. Okay, so if you've had a chance, or if you haven't had a chance yet, please look in the chat for the poll to the link to the Mentee poll. Well, you'll be able to answer this question here: which social cultural region do you associate with? So it looks like so far we have a good mix of people. Most of us are from the Central and South America and the Caribbean region, followed up by Africa, followed by Asia, followed by North America, and then followed by Eastern Europe, Russian Federation, Central Asia, and Transcaucasia. So it looks like we have a good response coming in here. So our second question we have here is to please input topics, themes, or areas that could be discussed at the annual Youth Roundtable at COP27. Indigenous youth. That's a good one. That one will definitely be talked about for sure. Indigenous and technology, values, indigenous respect, climate justice, participation, finance, relation with nature, climate finance for indigenous peoples, roles of indigenous youth, conservation strategies, ethnobiology. So far, these are all really great topics and themes that definitely we should cover a majority of them, if not all of them, because these are all important to the discussion that we're going to have there in the round table, and being able to talk about how we feel about each of these themes and topics is very, very important. So definitely we have a lot of good answers coming in here.
Hi, how are you?
We have some feedback coming in, so just as a friendly reminder, if you're not speaking, please mute your microphones. So definitely we have a lot of good answers coming in here. So before we move on to the next part of our consultation here, we would just like to encourage all of the youth here to connect with each other through the Zoom message or through the chat. If you can put your name, your country, your email address, if you would like to share it, it's up to you. And any thematic area that is of interest to you to promote networking. So please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Add whatever contact details you wish to add. You don't have to add any if you don't want to. Please let everybody know where you're from, and most importantly, what thematic area you are interested in. So we have people coming in from Tanzania, South Africa, Panama, Bangladesh. Let's see. Big Win Northern Arapaho Tribe in Wyoming. We have a very diverse range of youth coming in and being a part of this session. So thank you all for taking time out of your day to be able to join us today and to talk about what we feel should be included in the annual youth roundtable activity. So if you're just joining us, what we're doing now is we're um, having everyone put in um, their name, country, or community, indigenous people, your nation, your email address, or any other contact information you wish to share. You don't have to if you don't want to, and the thematic area that is of interest to you to promote networking. And this chat, I believe, will be saved and will be sent out to everyone who is registered today, so that if you're not able to write down everybody's emails or anything like that, don't worry about it. We'll get a copy of this chat out to all of you as well. So we got some good questions coming in, so we can keep that up. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and begin the open discussion. So I believe so the process of the questions here, the way that we're gonna do this, I believe, would be, and what I have experience in doing this with is usually I'll have people use the raise hand function. Are we able to do that? And usually whoever raises their hand first, their name will be put right at the top. And so we'll have a orderly list of people that we'll be able to call upon for each of these questions here. If you have trouble finding the raise hand function, please put that in the chat. I'm trying to see now if I have that option. Yes. So if you're looking for the raise hand function, you'll see it right next to the green button that says share screen. So go ahead and if you're wanting to answer one of the questions here, please select raise hand and we'll be able to call upon you. So the first question that we're going to ask everybody here today is, how can the annual youth roundtable at COP27 be designed to achieve activity 8 objectives? And so those objectives are: 1, enhancing the understanding of the substance and procedures of the UNFCCC, both within and outside the convention. The next objective is enhancing the engagement of Indigenous youth and youth from local communities in climate policy development and implementation at all levels. And the third is to facilitate the participation of Indigenous youth and youth from local communities in intergenerational knowledge sharing. So those are the objectives of activity 8. So how can the annual youth roundtable be designed to achieve these objectives? So it looks like we have a good amount of raised hands so far. So the first person that we can call upon here is Darian Castro. Darian, are you there?
Yeah, yeah. Hi everybody. Hi all the staff of this meeting. I would like to first of all to appreciate all these efforts that we, we have in terms of inclusion with the indigenous communities, that it's so important and valuable in the same time. And I, yeah, I think my suggestion to get that objectives in the activity A could be, for example, to do hybrid events with indigenous leaders that unfortunately, for example, didn't have the space or the chance to collaborate in this kind of events. We could see, for example, in the COP26 in Glasgow, some indigenous leaders were, censorship in local governments to, to protect some interest or conflict of interests. And maybe we can do the best way to get that objective would be include these indigenous leaders that maybe they can be in a in-person event and include them in a virtual level with some experiences, and especially indigenous leaders that have technical knowledge about the strategies of adaptation and mitigations in their context that are so valuable to, to understand the context and especially the reality in different areas with the indigenous community. Because maybe we are a great minority, but the different contexts are so diverse, and it's so important to understand that in a social level and even in a political and economical and scientific level too. Thank you so much.
Chris, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry. So no, thank you, Darian, for your inputs. Those are all very important. Um, Creating these spaces to be inclusive of as many indigenous peoples and local communities as possible is very important. So keeping in mind of trying to host these events as hybrid events is very important. So thank you for your input. Um, the next name we can call here, and if you can, after you're done speaking, if you can lower your hand, that would be very helpful. If not, we can do that for you as well. Um, the next person that we'll be able to call here is Matilda Mashari. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your names. Feel free to correct me. But Matilda, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matilda Moses Mashauri from Tanzania, and I'm 20 years old. Well, I think on my side, from the experience in my country, most of the East African countries, I think we should be having clubs. And for those, I'm sorry, my English is not so good. For those people who will be able to take part in the COP every year, after they are done, when they get
I think we lost Matilda's voice. We're not able to hear her.
Okay. Matilda, if you're still there, maybe we can come back to you. Please try to see if you can test your mic and make sure that it's working. Um, but we can come back to you once your mic starts working again. So the next person here we can move on to then would be Damayanti P.
Thank you so much, Chris, and the organizer for conducting this youth consultation. My name is Damayanti, or you can call me Setyaki. I'm the First Nations of the Urut Sewu of Java, Indonesia, and I'm currently the contact point of the Yongo Indigenous Solidarity Working Group. Regarding the objective of the activity 8, based on my experience, especially for the first point on enhancing the understanding of the substance and procedures of the UNFCCC, for the indigenous youth especially, it is quite challenging, especially to those who do not speak English, because most of the negotiations I still saw it on the ground that the negotiations doesn't provide other language beside English. So it is important to provide the official translator, for example, during the negotiation session for the minorities group. And the second point on the engagement of the indigenous and local communities in climate policy development and implementation at all levels. My questions here is more on how the UNFCCC itself could supervise the implementations on the ground on the policy development, because we know that most of the indigenous youth here, especially, and the local communities live in rural area, which is not really accessible, or usually and the policy development is not really so inclusive. Yeah, some of the young people live with the certain privilege, of course, but what I mean here and how this policy could be developed within the voice of the indigenous youth should be, and they should be included, not the policy developed and then implemented to the indigenous. Why? Because the knowledge of the indigenous itself is important in creating and shaping the policy and then the implementation. But then how the supervision from the UNFCCC or the country level itself, and also the assessment and the evaluations after the policy being created. This is important. And the third session is, the third point is about the facilitating the participation of indigenous youth and local communities in intergenerational knowledge sharing. Indigenous knowledge is unique. So every communities has their own knowledge, which is nurtured by generation, and usually in different countries or territories, it is also different, their knowledge. And on how we could create the participations, I mean, more inclusive, now is about how to reach out to the indigenous community itself. First, why? Because it is not accessible. Once again, most of us live in rural areas, which even the internet connection is also not accessible. And I think there should be the role of the technology in addressing the issue, not only in shaping the policy on how their unique knowledge should be included, but also on how the implementation, for example, for the indigenous youth participations in circular economy or green jobs, and then also in adaptations. We need to acknowledge the technology that help the indigenous community in doing or in participating their, how to say this? Oh, in doing their participations for the adaptations on the ground. So that's what my suggestion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Those were also very important points as well. It's very important that we remember to try to provide a translation or interpretation for as many indigenous peoples as possible. That's a challenge these days, where we know, at least from where I'm from, a lot of young indigenous peoples are starting to not speak the language anymore. So it's very important for us to also remember to continue to speak our indigenous languages so that we're able to communicate our ideas in a more meaningful way. But that's a very important point, and also acknowledging the indigenous technology that we have created that we're able to use to adapt to climate change on the ground. So very important points. Before we call upon the next person, it looks like we have Matilda back, so I'm gonna call upon her next. But if you would like, and if you have a stable internet connection, you can go ahead and turn your camera on, so that we're able to see everyone's face here, if you're comfortable with that. So feel free to turn your camera on when you're called upon, and we can go ahead and move forward. We'll go back to Matilda since she was disconnected earlier. So Matilda, you have the floor.
Thank you. So as I was saying, most of the indigenous people here in my country, Tanzania, I did an outreach years back, like 4 or 3 years back with the UNICEF. We found that they lack the information, they misunderstand the people, or the people, when they try to get the information on their own, they they misunderstand, they get the wrong interpretation. So we really need something like a branch, as I said. Maybe after this COP 28, we'll be able to open some few branches with few people who will be giving us a direct information to the trusted people, so that they'll be able to interpret the information to the indigenous people as it's supposed to be. We have more than 120 tribes in Tanzania. Each tribe speaks its own language. Each tribe speaks its own language. So it's very difficult for them to understand, and especially with things concerning the climate. And each tribe has its own cultures. Some other people we have, for example, the Sandawe tribe, they live in the trees until today. So they cut the trees, they make their own homes inside there. So they need education.
Your intervention here, and definitely it is very critical that we're able to provide as much factual information to everyone, to every indigenous person as possible. It's just that language barrier is what we're gonna need to be able to overcome. So your idea of creating these branches to give the direct information to indigenous peoples from every community is a really important idea. So thank you for your input. The next person we can go ahead and call upon here would be Jessica Maria from Brazil. You have the floor.
Hola, bueno, hablo portugués, pero comprendo español.
Hello. So I'm also including the information in the chat on my contribution to the first question. My language is not Spanish, but Portuguese. Sorry, the participant is speaking in Portuguese, but she has included the information in the chat in English and Spanish. So participants in the call are welcome to look at that information. Thank you.
Continuidade após o evento, além dos painéis que já estão programados, claro, que são importantes. Eu vejo isso como importante. Thank you. Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for your inputs, and for everyone who was not able to hear exactly what she said, she put her input in the chat there. So please feel free to look at that in the chat there. Thank you for your inputs. So the next person we can go ahead and call upon here is going to be Jose Gudinho from Venezuela. Jose?
Thank you very much. I'm speaking as a focal point of indigenous youth. Related to the question, I consider that as youth, we can write a declaration to call parties as well as the COP to guarantee the participation of youth and particularly indigenous youth in the negotiation processes at COP. We know that to register for COP, it is very complicated and sometimes participation is limited of indigenous youth that can access, as well as organizations, national organizations. So once we are at the roundtable, it would also be good to connect with other topics that we think are important because of the relation with, for example, food systems, biodiversity, territories, land, water. These topics are closely related to climate change, and indigenous youth are suffering the impact of climate change in our territories. So we should look at this in an integral way and not only exclusively climate change, because the impacts and relationships are ample. Also to encourage and make a strong call that we as youth are committed and present. And we are implementing different adaptation and mitigation policies on the ground, and indigenous peoples protect around 80% of biodiversity in our territories. So we want it to be guaranteed that there are friendly processes or accessible processes from youth for youth, that the youth participation is more flexible. So I say this because there's a group from Latin America and the Caribbean that we are trying to get to COP27, but not with empty hands. So we are trying to see with the special envoy of the Secretary General to do a parallel event at the UN only with youth people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose, for your input there. And I really feel that it is very important that we make that call to the COP and to the other UN bodies that we are committed and we're present as Indigenous youth, and that we're actually doing things on the ground, that we're implementing these strategies, and that we as an Indigenous peoples are responsible for protecting over 80% of the world's biodiversity. So thank you for your inputs. The next name we'll go ahead and call here will be Edmund Margai.
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Hello, everyone. I'm Edmond Margai from Sierra Leone. I'm the founder and CEO for a youth-led organization that's focused on transforming coastal community. Our organization is called Reach Out Salon, and we work more in vulnerable communities with communities that are indigenous connected. So in related to my questions about youth participation, because we want to see more opportunity be given to youth to participate in this year COP27, and also so that the more we participate, we give us the opportunity for us to tell our own story and also learn from others. So we want to see that kind of platform because we've been like applying for like participation, but much attention has not been paid to us. So we want to see much attention is being paid in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. Yes, very important that there are more opportunities created for youth to be able to participate at COP27. As much as we can, it would be very, very critical for us to be able to have a seat at every table there at COP27, so that our voices are heard and that our input is taken there as well. So thank you. We'll move on to the next person here. We're looking like we're coming down to the last few hands. So after Anthony, we're going to move on to the second question. So Yoko, you have the floor.
Yeah, hello. So I guess I'll turn my camera on just because. So as people have said like previously, as this previous person said, like Spanish is a really common language, and most of these indigenous people don't speak like more than one language. So it's very important to include translation, but that's not my main point. That's just like additional. So I think it's really important to include indigenous people from like different communities, like people living in cities and people living in rural areas. For example, because I know that like each country has different policies and governance that affects indigenous peoples, and it can be different, but indigenous peoples do have this common value and common knowledge that it's basically common among indigenous peoples. So I think it's important to have a diversity of the indigenous people at the round table, even like although they're all like indigenous, there's also like a little bit of differences, like of like the communities where they live, or like gender, like for example. And of course, it would be really beneficial to include like elders or like basically like people who are involved with youth, so that so more voices can be heard. Even though it's a youth roundtable, I think it's interesting to have also someone else to be included, so that more voices can be included and this will be more discussion. And I think that was mentioned earlier, but I'll just elaborate it more. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoko. Yes, I mean it's really good that a lot of these points are being reiterated, because that just highlights what we all want as Indigenous youth and youth from local communities to happen at COP27. If these things are being repeated, those are some things that we all feel should be included. So definitely including Indigenous peoples from all communities is really critical. Creating that space for them to be able to participate, whether it be through in person or through online or through some other means, is very critical. So remembering to include everybody is very important as well. Thank you, Yoko. The next person we'll go ahead and call upon here is Ruayi Guzman. Ruayi, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, but you have the floor.
¿Aló? ¿Me escuchan? ¿Aló?
Sí.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
¿Aló? ¿Me escuchan?
Sí, le escuchamos.
Okay. Gracias, Chris, por la invitación.
Thank you, Chris, for the invitation and for this space, and so that we can hear the vision and proposals from other youth around the world related to the UNFCCC. My proposal on what actions can be promoted to enhance the participation of youth, for example, is that during discussions in the roundtable and in the final document, instead that only one or two people can actually participate with the government when this document is presented, I would like to propose that more youth are able to transmit this message that we as youth have finalized, so that more than a few people can share it with the governments and can convey this passion and enthusiasm of young people to act and stop further damage to the earth. So during the roundtable, it would also be good that discussions aren't that technical, but that the style can be more accessible, more friendly, so that we wouldn't feel shy or nervous on how we are participating and if we are saying things correctly. So it would be good if language could be a bit more simple. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruai. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, but no, very, very important points as well. Especially your point on making this roundtable to be not as technical and to be not so rigid, but to be more open and inclusive and to be more inviting to everybody so that they feel comfortable sharing things and not feeling like they're mispronouncing something or they're trying to talk about something that they don't really know about. It's really important that yes, that this roundtable is designed in a way that doesn't intimidate us as a youth, because obviously we're still young, we're still learning, we don't know everything about the UN just yet, but we're trying to get there. So making it easier for us to be able to participate in this roundtable is a very important point. Thank you. So we're kind of getting close to the end here, but we still have another question to go. And I said that the last person we're gonna call here is gonna be Anthony. So I'll give you the floor to answer this question as the last speaker. I'm sorry, I see your hand up, Jessica. We won't be able to get to you to answer this question here, but if you can, please put whatever you wanted to say in the chat here so that we're able to get your input and not leave you out from anything. So Anthony, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Anthony. I'm from Africa, that's East Africa, and I'm from the country called Kenya. And I'm happy to have this conversation and this open mind kind of interaction across the world. And I'm happy the way the moderator is moderating. As far as the COP27 is concerned, here in Kenya, during these meetings, a member COP, I don't know if it's COP21 that was held in Morocco, that's around 2015. They are accredited NGOs that represent the country. They normally choose for themselves. So during representation, you find maybe an NGO which is credited, and 2 people attend the meeting, and you find the 2 people there's no youth who represent them, and also the government officials normally being appointed, there's no youth there. So you find that there's a very big gap of youth as far as the round table is concerned. I suggest that we let us have in the near future, let us have the pre-COP, maybe here in Africa as a continent, Asia to have their own before the big COP, so that we can have youth representation. Well, because our youth, they are very important people to have all this information as far as maybe the global issues are concerned. I also like or suggest that to have local leaders because they are very important as far as indigenous knowledge is concerned, because those are the people who we need them. Even the COP, they are supposed to attend this meeting so that indigenous knowledge can be actualized, because it really helps to have what is known as knowledge sharing in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony. Very important inputs there that you have just shared as well. And it just reminds me of a lot of other people's inputs that we just received, which is to be more inclusive. Just overall, just we need to find ways to organize also pre-COP in our own communities to be able to share ideas of what we want to present at the actual COP, and to just be able to be together as a group to get on the same page. So very important point there. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the second question here. We're running a little short on time here, so we might not be able to take as many people here. So if you have if you have inputs here, please put them in the chat in case we don't get to you, so that we have it on record that this is what you said and this is what you would want from this. So please put whatever inputs you have in the chat. So second question is, what specific actions could help Indigenous youth participate fully and effectively in the annual Youth Roundtable at COP27? So what specifically can the LCIPP do so that Indigenous youth are fully and effectively participating in this roundtable activity? What exactly can we do? And we had some good ideas already, such as making it not so technical, making it more open and inviting for everybody to be a part of this activity. So please raise your hand if you would like to speak on this. We'll try to get to as many as we can here before we have to close the meeting out in about 20 minutes. So first person that we have that raised their hand is going to be Matilda. So Matilda, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just make this short and clear. The first thing that I think we should do is to make youth take actions on climate change by giving them education, awareness raising, and behavioral change campaigns. We really need to do this, especially I will really recommend this to be done in all the countries, even in my country, Tanzania. First of all, to give them education. A lot of people lack education here in my country. We also have ignorant people. We also give awareness raising. I've already said that. The behavioral change campaigns, we need to do many campaigns as we can so that we can be able to make them participate in this. And also it's give them confidence. I also didn't have confidence. I just had my confidence after attending some few events, 3 to 4. We also need to make the youth have confidence. Some people have voice, but their voice, they just keep it inside. We need to teach we need to teach the youth about having confidence, making their voice be heard, because climate change is a problem we are all experiencing right now. Not Africa, not Asia, not North America, not Africa, Australia, nowhere. It is a problem we are all experiencing. So we need to not be afraid to make our voice heard. And also the last thing that I cannot say, it's to make sure that this thing is also being taught in school. For example, here us, we have primary school, grade 1 to grade 7, secondary from 1 to from 4, high school from 5 and from 6. Then we have the tertiary level for the college. We need to teach climate things from school. In Tanzania, we don't have that. Maybe few schools that can manage to have small, maybe environment clubs. The students have been taught how to plant trees, but there is not enough information. So we really need to do that. In that way, it's going to give a broader experience, and we'll be able to solve the climate issues. And this includes both engaging the indigenous youth and the other ones, so as it can facilitate the participation of both of us, the knowledge sharing and strengthening of the practices. That's it. Thank you so much. I hope it's clearly understood.
Thank you, Matilda. Yes, your message was heard loud and clear. And I'm sure we all understood exactly what you said, and everything that you said, very important. Make sure that we are teaching these things in school and making sure that we give the youth the confidence to be able to participate in activities like this. Very important points. Thank you. Next person we will call upon here, Yoko. You
Wait, I
have
have
the
a
floor.
question before I answer this question. I think that question specifically asked for people who are going to COP27, right? Not people who wants to involve at COP27 internationally, right?
It not specifically. I mean, if you are going there, and if you have ideas of how exactly you want this activity to be carried out, yes, this question is for you, but this question is for everybody, because there may be a chance in the future where we might not be able to go this year, but we might be able to go next year. So if you have ideas just about this roundtable in general, please feel free
Okay,
to
so
share.
I'm going to answer this like question in like two perspectives. So one perspective is exactly like the same as the previous person said, but I'm going to add on that it's also very important not to exclude indigenous youth who are not involved with like this. Okay, I'll just do my video then. Okay, so wait. Oh, so it's all important not to exclude everyone, like not indigenous people, even though not everyone is involved at COP27. So maybe for people, maybe there are people who are not interested at politics level just for like complicated reasons or personal reasons. But it's also important to communicate well to those people, but without using like those terms that we know that they don't want to adjust, but in a different way. So not to harm like their way of thinking, but also try to engage them, like for example, local level, but which can be brought to international level, like indirectly. I mean, I think this like the inclusion is like important aspect, and I'm just gonna stop there. For focus second one, it's basically what you just said right now. It's very important also look at beyond COP27. That it's also important not to talk about why we should like do this, but we also have to take actions, and we also have to teach them. I mean, not teach them. Sorry, raise awareness that they also have to think about the future and how it has an effect on their children or the next generation, for example, and how like they can be involved further. Like for example, maybe there will be like not a training, like mentee session, that maybe there is like training session for them to do a project, because it's very important also to like encourage people to do something, even though they might think that they might not have the skills or knowledge or time, but we have to also remind them that like they have the they can do it, because everyone can do it, even the children can do it, such and such. Yeah, that's all. I mean, I was really brief, but thank you.
Thank you, Yoko. Very important points. Not to exclude Indigenous youth and to be able to look ahead in the future, not just at what's going to happen this year, but how we can build upon these activities is very, very important. Next person we will call upon here is Probin Tripura. Probin?
Yes, Probin. Thank you, Chris, for giving me space. I'm from Bangladesh and I'm representing Asia Indigenous Youth Platform. I work with a platform named Youth Empowerment and Climate Action Platform as well. So what I would suggest in today's consultation session in relation to the question number 2 is basically like I think the indigenous youth participation from across the world it should be ensured. Like as I'm from Bangladesh, so there are almost 52 different indigenous group of people living here. So we, the indigenous people from in our country face the climate issue closely, and we basically live closely to the nature. So we feel it, what can I say? We feel it from like what closely, and yeah, that is why the indigenous youth participation from all countries, all areas should be ensured. And the second thing is sometimes the young people who work on a climate issue, and when they are given an opportunity to participate in such opportunity, sometimes they cannot attend even after having an opportunity because of the financial issue, or because maximum indigenous people coming from they are not strongly in financial, they are not strong in financial issue. So I think I would suggest this one also. This can be considered while you are nominating someone from indigenous community or youth. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So thank you very much, Chris, and the organizer. Thank you.
Thank you, Probin. Thank you for your inputs and for your ideas there. We definitely need to ensure youth participation from all indigenous peoples. As we all know, there are numerous communities of indigenous peoples, nations, and so forth. So definitely ensuring everyone's participation is very critical. So thank you for your input. We'll go ahead and move on to Jessica. You have the floor.
Hi guys, thank you. My contribution está en el chat en inglés, español.
Sí, my contribution is in the chat in English and Spanish. It is a real challenge for some of us to go to the COP and access these discussion spaces, even through languages. So even for those people interested in presenting different initiatives at the local level, it's important to give them a space, for example, in a pavilion, in an event, to hear the different activities that have been developing in their different spaces, to generate curiosity and really exchange. So, for example, we could open a WhatsApp group and include all the different people that are interested, and to keep them informed and really have a discussion. So I want to also present that we have different case studies, and that's also very important to present. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica, for your inputs. Very important. And thank you for putting them in the chat as well. I believe toward the end of the session today, we're going to have a Google form where everybody will be able to access this form and be able to input whatever they want to say in that form there. So I believe it will be put in the chat soon. But so we're coming up here pretty close to the end of the session. So I'll only be able to take maybe about 2 or 3 more hands. So I'm sorry if I don't get to you. But like I said, just mentioned, there should be a form that'll be put in the chat where you can put in your input there. So next person we'll go ahead is going to be Dane or Dane de Sousa.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. My name is Dane D'Souza. I'm calling in from Treaty 7, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm hearing a lot of people discuss how there's a lot of anxiety about language barriers, making their voices heard, and accessing COP as Indigenous youth. I think one thing that we could approach as Indigenous peoples of the world is taking the time and the space at COP27 to interact, get to know each other, the problems we're facing, what things we're facing together, and what unites us, and then using each other's voices and skills. I can't speak Spanish, but I can speak English pretty darn well. If I could use and give my voice to more people than only my nation, I'd be doing a service to not only my nation, but Indigenous peoples all over the world. I think that's an opportunity for us who have the fortune to be attending COP27 to not only just speak for the nations we represent and the people we represent, but for Indigenous peoples all over the world who may not be able to access COP and may not be able to have their voices heard in the way they need. So I think coming together, finding space, interacting, and then collaborating to better represent not only ourselves, but Indigenous peoples around the world go a long way to making sure youth participation at COP is effective and efficient. Thank you all very much. And I look forward to seeing you all in Egypt.
Thank you, Dane. I really would like to follow up on your point and to be able to say that, you know, we will take that time in this space at COP27 to interact and share. We have to make sure that we all do that. And that's what this youth roundtable is going to be designed to do. But it doesn't have to be just there. We can do it outside of that roundtable as well, in more informal spaces as well, to be able to share and interact with each other. So thank you for your input. So I'll probably only be able to take one more name here, Jose, and then we're going to close this session out. So I'm sorry if I don't get to you. Apologies, but just there's a link in the chat where you can provide your input there. And you can also put it in your native language if you feel comfortable with doing that as well. So just keep that in mind. Thank you. Jose, you have the floor.
Gracias, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Taking into account that the roundtable is for young people, for Indigenous youth and youth from local communities, it would be good to invite during or at the end country representatives that are supportive of our cause and supportive of Indigenous youth, and also to share the draft of the final document that's going to be read, and invite these friends, like friend countries, to support Indigenous youth and their organizations to attend COP. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. So thank you, everybody. I'm sorry if we didn't get to call you. We are going to go ahead and close the session out here. So your inputs will be compiled in a report, and it'll be used to design the annual youth roundtable, which we're going to have at COP27. If you haven't already, please put your contact information if you feel comfortable with it in the chat, your name, where you're from, and the thematic area in which you're interested in contributing to at the roundtable in the chat here, and we'll save a copy of it and we'll send it out to everybody. So yeah, so please also, if you have a Twitter, you can tweet today about what you felt, what you shared, what you learned, any takeaways that you have from this activity. Please tweet about it, or whichever social media platform you use. But make sure to use the tag here, which is going to be at @AdaptXChange. So if you want to tweet about this event, please try to use that and tag that in there so that we'll have a whole collective a thread going so that everybody can see what everybody else felt about this as well. And there is a link to a Google Doc form where you can provide your input if you weren't able to share today on this topic. So please use that link to provide your input there if you weren't able to speak, or even if you were able to speak and you just want a written record of it. Go ahead and use that form there to provide your input there. So yeah, so just use the tag that we had put up on the screen earlier, @AdaptXChange, so that you can tweet about this later today. And I just want to be able to also take this time right now to first of all thank everybody who was a part of this session today. We had a lot of meaningful inputs and everything. A lot of good answers to the questions that we asked, a lot of good input, a lot of good ideas and knowledge that was shared today. Also, we want to make a really special thank you out to our interpreter, Paloma Noriega. Without her, we wouldn't have been able to done this in another language, and without her, we wouldn't have been able to provide access to a whole new audience. So thank you very much, Paloma, for taking the time to interpret for us today. I know in my previous experiences with webinars and stuff, we usually, if we go over an hour, we usually like to have 2 interpreters, but you're the only one here for a session that was an hour and a half. So thank you very much for your time and your effort in doing all of this. And just to thank you to also our organizers as well, everybody else who was behind the scenes, Supriya, Haisu, and the UNFCCC Secretariat as well, and also other members of the LCIPP and the Facilitative Working Group for helping to make this a possibility. So there will be, I believe, a second consultation that will be aimed at the other socio-cultural regions to be held at another date, which I can believe is going to be next week. I don't
It will
have
be
it
this Friday. Yeah, I can
this
put it
Friday.
in the chat in case someone wants to share in their network. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, and then the copy of the chat for today's session will be shared with everyone as well, who was in attendance today. And I believe this session is recorded, so I'm guessing that this session will also be available to people who were not able to participate today. So with all of that, thank you all again for joining us, taking the time out of your day to provide your inputs and to speak on this subject. I apologize if we weren't able to get to you or call on you, but just know that your voice needs to be heard, and there's a place for you to put your voice, which would be that Google form link there. So thank you all again. And I hope to see some of you, or if not as many people as I can at COP27. I'm planning to be there in person. And I'm really looking forward to working with all of you in the future. And thank you all again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your active participation. And thank you, Chris, for moderating this session and getting all the
Gracias, Cris, gracias.
Bonjour. Thank you so much for this meeting. Thank you. May God bless you. But remember to create what group WhatsApp group WhatsApp if it is possible, because we have different many questions to ask, and we sent numbers in the chat.